End of Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson. Imogene, for instance, didn't know that Mary was supposed to be acted out in one certain way, sort of quiet and dreamy and out of this world. The way Imogene did it, Mary was a lot like Mrs. Santoro at the pizza parlor. Mrs. Santoro is a big fat lady with a little skinny husband and 9 children, and she yells and hollers and hugs her kids and slaps them around. That's how Imogene's Mary was, loud and bossy. "Get away from the baby," she yelled at Ralph, who was Joseph, and she made the wise men keep their distance. "The wise men want to honor the Christ child," Mother explained for the 10th time. "They don't mean to harm him, for heaven's sake." But the wise men didn't know how things were supposed to be either, and nobody blamed Imogene for shoving them out of the way. You got the feeling that these wise men were going to hustle back to Herod as fast as they could and squeal on the baby out of pure meanness. They thought about it, too. "What if we didn't go home another way?" Leroy demanded. Leroy was Melchior. "What if we went back to the king and told on the baby, where he was and all?" "He would murder Jesus," Ralph said. "Old Herod would murder him." "He would not." That was Imogene with fire in her eye. And since the herdmen fought one another just as fast as they fought everybody else, Mother had to step in and settle everyone down. I thought about it later, though, and I decided that if Herod, a king, set out to murder Jesus, a carpenter's baby's son, he would surely find some way to do it. So when Leroy said, "What if we went back and told on the baby?" it gave you something to think about. No Jesus, ever. I don't know whether anybody else got this flash. Alice Winkledon, for one, didn't. "I don't think it's very nice to talk about baby Jesus being murdered," she said, stitching her lips together and looking sour. This was one more thing to write down on her pad of paper, and one more thing to tell her mother about the herdmans. Besides the fact that they swore and smoked and stole and all, I think she kept hoping that they would do one great big sinful thing and her mother would say, "Well, that's it," and get on the telephone and have them thrown out. "Be sure and tell your mother that I can step right in and be Mary if I have to," she told me as we stood in the back row of the angel choir. "And if I'm Mary, we can get the Perkins baby for Jesus. But Mrs. Perkins won't let Imogene Herdman get her hands on him." The Perkins baby would have made a terrific Jesus, and Alice knew it. The way things stood, we didn't have a baby at all, and this really bothered my mother because you couldn't very well have the best Christmas pageant in history with the chief character missing. We had a lot of babies offered in the beginning, all the way from Eugene Sloper, who was so new he was still red, up to Junior Caudill, who was almost 4. His mother said he could scrunch up. But when all the mothers found out that the herdmans, they withdrew their babies. Mother had called everybody she knew, trying to scratch up a baby. But the closest thing she came was Bernice Waitrose, who kept foster babies all the time. "I got a darling little boy right now," Bernice told Mother. "He's 3 months old and so good I hardly know he's in the house. He'd be wonderful. Of course he's Chinese. Does that matter?" No, Mother said it doesn't matter at all. But Bernice's baby got adopted before Christmas, and Bernice said she didn't like to ask to borrow him back right away. So that was that. "Listen," Imogene said, "I'll get us a baby." "How would you do that?" Mother asked. "I'll steal one," Imogene said. "There's always 2 or 3 babies in carriages outside the AP Market." "Oh, Imogene, don't be ridiculous," Mother said. "You can't just walk off with somebody's baby, you know." I doubt if Imogene did know that. She walked off with everything else. "We just won't worry any more about a baby," Mother said. "We'll use a baby doll. That'll be better anyway." Imogene looked pleased. "A doll who can't bite you," she pointed out, which just went to prove that the herdman started out mean right from the cradle. Chapter 6. Our last rehearsal happened to be the night before the potluck supper, and when we got there, the kitchen was full of ladies in aprons, counting out dishes and silverware and making applesauce cake for dessert. "I'm sorry about this," one of the ladies told Mother, "but with so much to do at this time of year, the committee decided to come in this evening and set up all the tables and all. I just hope we won't bother you." "Oh, you won't," Mother said. "We won't be in the kitchen. You won't even know we're here." Mother was wrong. Everybody in that end of town knew we were there before the evening was over. Now this is going to be a dress rehearsal, Mother told us all, and right away 3 or 4 baby angels began hollering that they forgot their wings. Half the angel choir had forgotten their robes, and Hobby Carmichael said he didn't have any kind of costume. Wear your father's bathrobe, Charlie told him. That's what I do. He doesn't have a bathrobe. What does he hang around the house in? His underwear, Hobby said. I looked at Alice Winkleton to see if she was going to write that down on her pad of paper. But Alice was standing all by herself in a corner, patting her hair. Her hair was all washed and curled, and her robe was clean and pressed. She even had put Vaseline on her eyelids so they would shine in the candlelight, and everyone would say, "Who's that lovely girl in the angel choir? Why isn't she Mary?" I guess Alice was afraid to move for fear she might spoil herself. Don't worry about your wings, Mother said. The main point of dress rehearsal isn't the costumes. The main point is to go right straight through without stopping. And that's what we were going to do, just as if we were doing it for the whole congregation. I'm going to sit in the back of the church and be the audience. But it didn't work out that way. The baby angels came in the wrong place and had to go back and out again, and the whole gang of shepherds didn't come out at all for fear of Gladys. Imogene couldn't find the baby Jesus doll and wrapped up a great big memorial flower urn in the blanket, then dropped it on Ralph's foot. And half the angel choir sang away in the major while the other half sang O Little Town of Bethlehem. So we had to start over a lot. I got the baby here, Imogene barked at the wise men. Don't touch him. I named him Jesus. No, 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 Mother came flying up the aisle. Now, Imogene, you know you're not supposed to say anything. Nobody says anything in our pageant except the angel of the Lord and the choir singing carols. Mary and Joseph and the wise men make a lovely picture for us to look at while we think about Christmas and what it means. I guess my mother had to say things like that, even though everybody knew it was a big lie. The herdmans didn't look anything out of the Bible, more like trick or treat. Imogene even had great big gold earrings on. She wouldn't take them off. Now, Imogene, Mother said, you know Mary didn't wear earrings. I have to wear these, Imogene said. Why's that? I got my ears pierced. If I don't keep something in them, they'll grow together. Well, they won't grow together in an hour and a half, Mother said. No, but I better leave them in. Imogene pulled on her earrings, which made you shudder. It was like looking at pictures in National Geographic of natives with their ears stretched all the way to their shoulders. What did the doctor say about leaving something in them? Mother said. What doctor? Well, who pierced your ears? Gladys, Imogene said. That really made you shudder, the thought of Gladys Herdman's piercing ears. I thought she probably used an ice pick for the next 6 months I kept watching Imogene to see if her ears turned black and fall off. All right, Mother said, but we'll try to find something smaller and more appropriate for you to wear in the pageant. Now we'll start again and go right straight through, and I think I ought to tell them what his name is, Imogene said. No, besides, you remember it wasn't Mary who named the baby. I told you, Ralph whacked Imogene on the back. I named him. Joseph didn't name the baby either, Mother said. God sent an angel to tell Mary what his name should be. Imogene sniffed. I would have named him Bill. Alice Winkleton sucked in her breath, and I could hear her scratching down on her iPad of paper that Imogene would have called the baby Bill instead of Jesus. What angel was that? Ralph wanted to know. Was that Gladys? No, Mother said. Gladys is the angel who comes to the shepherds with the news. Yeah, Gladys said. Unto you a child is born, she yelled at the shepherds. Unto me, Imogene yelled back at her. Not them, me. I'm the one who had the baby. No, 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 Mother sat down on the front pew. That just means that Jesus belongs to everybody. Unto all of us a child is born. Now, she sighed, let's start again. And why didn't they let Mary name her own baby? Imogene demanded. What did that angel do? Just walk up and say, name him Jesus? Yes, Mother said, because she was in a hurry to get finished. But Alice Winkleton had to open her big mouth. I know what the angel said, Alice piped up. She said, his name shall be Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. I could have hit her. My God, Imogene said, he'd never get out of the first grade if he had to write all that. There was a big crash at the back of the church as if somebody dropped all the collection plates. But it wasn't the collection plates. It was Mrs. Hopkins, the minister's wife, dropping a whole tray of silverware. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was just passing by, and I thought I'd take a peek." "Would you like to sit down and watch the rehearsal?" Mother said. "No." Mrs. Hopkins couldn't seem to take her eyes off Imogene. "I'd better go check on the applesauce cake." "You didn't have to say that," I told Alice. "All that about wonderful, everlasting Father and all." "Why not?" Alice said, patting her hair. "I thought Imogene wanted to know." By that time, everyone was hot and tired, and most of the baby angels had to go to the bathroom, so Mother said we would take a 5-minute recess. "And then we'll start over," she said, looking sort of hopeless, "and go right straight through without stopping, won't we?" Well, we never did go right straight through. 5-minute recess was a big mistake because it stretched to 15 minutes, and Imogene spent the whole time smoking cigars in one of the johns in the ladies' room. Then Mrs. Homer McCarthy went to the ladies' room and opened the door and smelled something funny and saw smoke, and she ran right to the church office and called the fire department.